Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. He's a man, goddamn.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Community America Credit Union. Believe in unbelievable. My name is Joel Goldberg. Quick shout out to my friends at Chief of Staff Kansas City, Casey Wright, all the people over there, my good friends, and we do a lot of partnering, and so I'm glad that they're alongside of me, making connections that matter. Check them out at chiefofstaffkc.com. Got a great guest today. I'll say it over and over again. I think I always have great guests, but this is a good business piece here for everyone today, and every business faces challenges, but today's guest on Rounding the Bases is known for bringing the solutions, and he does it with a creative, hands-on approach that's proven to succeed. Joining me in the virtual studio is Mike DeMaio, the founder and managing director of Crown Financial. Its CFO services may be fractional, but the results just don't stop for the small and mid-sized businesses it serves. With expert direction, he positions clients for success, supporting their full ascent to the top. And I'm excited right now to be able to visit, really for the first time in almost a few years, with Mike DeMaio. Mike, how are you?
Good, Joel. How you doing? Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's good to have you, and I love this topic. I'll just go back to say that somewhere around COVID or before, somewhere in that range, you and I were connected, and then we ended up being reconnected to do this podcast. And so it's crazy how much things have changed. I'll start right there. How much did your world change over the last few years?
Tremendously. I mean, both not only within my business, but also with just how we're helping clients. I mean, what we do is offer fractional CFO services. So we're really helping business owners run their business. So the way we serve our clients, it's sort of, presented with challenges. And as you mentioned, we're there to help solve the problems. And as you know, COVID had all kinds of challenges, everything from, in the office or out of the office to, is the business growing, declining, all the government PPP loans, all those sorts of things, dealing with the bank. It was probably the, weirdest time of my business life for sure. And we've lived through some weird things before, but it was interesting. And then even from just our own company, we were busier than ever with our existing clients, but finding those new clients was a challenge, and as we all know, trying to network over Zoom was a little bit different than being in person. And our business relies a lot on referrals. So we really had to change up how we were finding clients. So it was a world of difference since COVID for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we all can relate to that. When you and I jumped on before the podcast, you said, well, last time I saw you, you were in your closet. And at that point, I had basically made my podcast studio my walk-in closet with a sheet up behind me. And I was never embarrassed by it. I was in many ways proud of just figuring out a way. And for me, it was, okay, I think I could avoid the kids and the dogs barking and all of that here. This is the quietest place in the house. But I mean, this is not a time to go out there and rent office space. This is not a time, there's no money coming in. And so it was really just a matter of survival. And I'm curious on your end, two-part question. One, just the survival element of your business suddenly being faced with COVID like everyone else. And then two, because you have so many clients, I imagine you're kind of wearing all of their stress too.
Absolutely. The survival, the first part, the survival on our part was really unique. I mean, the businesses need our help. It wasn't a matter of our clients going away. It was a matter of having to pivot and help our clients. I think one of the benefits we bring to the table normally is we've seen this, done this, and there's usually not a challenge we haven't seen before. COVID was something we had never seen before. I mean, as a planet, right? At least in our lifetime. So it was, our job to bring solutions, and you had to pivot and really come together as a team, which was really important to us, to have all of our consultants, meeting regularly to talk about, well, here's what we're doing here, and here's what worked here. So being able to pivot how we help our clients, trying to navigate those waters without having a ton of experience, in that particular thing, was really different. And then, wearing our client stress. Absolutely. One of the unique things, we have about 75 clients right now, and every client is completely different. They face different challenges. while we were all going through this together, well, a professional services company can easily transition to work from home, whereas a manufacturing company had to be there, in the facility. And so, yeah, you were wearing those stresses, but they all had different problems and unique problems, and no two companies were the same. No two companies were or no two industries were the same. And so, just having to be nimble and improvise on the fly and still provide value to our customers was certainly a challenge.
So we're past that. There'll be something else. Hopefully, never anything like that again in our lifetime. But there's always something else. I got to imagine that that's part of the fun of your type of business is having. You just talked a little bit about the diversity of clients and helping them with all of their needs and their problems and everything that comes up. That no one day could ever be possibly the same for you.
Yeah, that is the fun part of it. We're not the type of CFO firm that's there just to close the books and do the accounting every month. We're there to help clients get from point A to point B, to help them grow. And with that, yeah, comes fun, unique challenges. I think all of us within our firm are problem solvers at heart. And so we like to face the problems. We like to solve the problems. And that is part of the fun part, and the fulfilling part is helping solve those problems, helping other people solve problems that maybe they can't do on their own, that they need a CFO alongside with them. And so, yeah, that diversity is just amazing, and the fun part of the job for sure.
Okay, so you had a background in all of this. What inspired you to start Crown? How did you get there?
Yeah, I think even when I was a kid, I distinctly remember walking down the aisles of Kmart or whatever in the toy section, and even at that time, just thinking, there's a company behind every product in this aisle, and probably a story and everything going on behind each product, and that just always really intrigued me. Fast forward to when I got an MBA in entrepreneurship from a school in Boston called Babson College. So I was just always interested in entrepreneurship. When I got out of school, I was on the CFO track and worked my way up to the CFO level within companies. But about 8 years ago, I turned 40 and just thought, I always had this itch to start my own business. It's one of those things you just think, geez, am I going to get the opportunity or not to ever do this? And so I just sort of took the plunge, figuring I want to try to do this. I started talking with people about a need in the marketplace for this fractional CFO services. And I think everyone I talked to said, absolutely. Talking to banks like Community America, for sure. They deal with a lot of businesses that don't have a CFO, but yet they're lending them a lot of money. So once you realize there's a need, I was ready to take the plunge. It was really just this sort of itch I needed to scratch. And, very glad I did. We had little kids at home too, and it was just a way of sort of take a little bit more control of my career. Not that my previous jobs weren't great, they were, but take a little more control with the kids at home and being able to dictate my schedule a little better was certainly an inspiration as well.
It's my favorite question to ask any entrepreneur, and I've yet to have anybody say, "Oh yeah, it was easy." There's nothing easy about starting something. There's just whatever it is, right? We all want to take the plunge in something, whether it's business or I can't even tell you, Mike, how many people that I have come to me now as if I'm somehow the expert and say, I want to start a podcast or I want to write a book. I couldn't have dreamt of doing something like that 6 years ago. And now the podcast is hundreds of episodes and getting ready to write the second book and all of that. By no means am I an expert, but I can go back and think and I guess it was an entrepreneurial journey for me too, without even realizing it at the time that I was going that route, the speaking business. It was scary. Now, I happen to have another job. I still can go to that Royals baseball job, except for during a pandemic. But how scary was it? You had your footing. You were established already, but this was totally new. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was scary. And even I had the distinct advantage of helping run companies for 20 years before I even took my own plunge. And so, even having that experience, I was very confident. I knew how to, maybe do 80% of it. The scary part is looking at your weaknesses, right? And saying, okay, I am not good at sales. I've never had to sell a thing in my life. Matter of fact, it was the opposite. I was the hunted for 20 years people were trying to sell me things as a CFO of a company, and now I'm out trying to get business. And things like that, and certainly building a company and income at home and all those sorts of things. And so, for me, it was very nerve-wracking. You always have to think, what is your backup plan? I could always go back and get a full-time CFO job. But it's really introspective too, because you do need to look at those weaknesses and figure out, okay, I have no idea how to do this aspect of the business. What am I going to do to get better? And I think I can say now, 7 years later, it's probably one of my strengths now. Maybe outselling for our company, just because I had to work so hard at it along the way.
I was about to ask you about what is it like to turn it around and look at yourself. What did you learn?
I think you learn that you can overcome your perceived weaknesses, right? It's just a matter of, number one, identifying it, and number two, working on it. There's a lot of things that you've done in your career that just you can do with your eyes closed. That stuff's the easy part, but it's the, how do I improve myself, either as a leader, as a salesperson, as a, teammate on the team, et cetera. You identifying those weaknesses is important for any business, really. And for me, it was really important to know what those weaknesses are and either try to improve them on myself or hire people around me, to complement those weaknesses.
So the companies you're working with, they're across the board, right? All types, probably small and medium size. The big businesses have their own CFO. Essentially, you're providing all of those CFO services for these companies that either can't afford or don't want to have a full-time CFO. What's the range of services? What's the range of problems that you're solving?
Yeah, that's a good question. The size of company we're working with, right, can be between $5 and $50 million in revenue. Beyond that, they might have a CFO, and even within that range of revenue, there's all different challenges. I always say you could have two companies across the street from one another, same exact industry, same exact revenue size, but when you go in, they are completely different on the inside because people are different, culture's different, systems different, even their goals are different. And so, the ability to go in and complement their existing resources, but also able to, help them identify where their weaknesses are, help them achieve their goals, help them put together a plan, I think is the unique challenge of walking into just the front door of a different business, and knowing that they're different on the inside, and really kind of doing that discovery with them and help them, understand where they need help, where we can help, and then help them sort of, get from point A to point B.
Well, there's so much. This again is true for any profession. It's true for mine when I walk into the locker room and talk to players every day. Everything's about relationships. I've yet to have a guest on the show that would disagree with me on that, because it's important no matter what we do, unless you're in business with yourself and you don't have any clients. I don't know how that works. I guess a big inheritance or something. I don't know. But for the most part, everything we do is about relationships. And that's, you got me thinking as you're talking about that you might have two companies that are exactly the same, or at least appear to be, and their cultures are totally different. Maybe one just is excelling and they've nailed the culture, and the other one, they're not quite sure. They're trying to put those pieces together, and add in the fact that right now, post-COVID, not everybody's working in the office. To me, it's the number one thing I'm hearing from executives and from CEOs is, how do I bring my people together when they're not all physically together? So how are you handling all of that with so many different scenarios?
Yeah, I'll talk about our clients first, and I'll talk about us as a company. But with the clients, it really, truly everybody's different, has different goals, and you're trying to get the people aligned with the goals of the company, and with that is, the culture, even working within the environment. Sometimes, culture can, bring everybody together, and you're all rowing in the same direction. And sometimes a bad culture can create a lot of turnover, right? And so even if you're, trying to get everybody aligned to hit the goals, or you're just trying to stop turnover, that office environment is so important. Everything from, can I get people into the office so we can work together as a team, to, hey, a fresh coat of paint around here would go a long way. And so how do you, sort of create that environment, not only to get people in the office, but to work as a team, and that whether it's a physical environment or working as a team in an online environment, is challenging. Like I said, we have some companies in the manufacturing construction industry. I mean, they never closed their doors. I mean, people were in their facilities almost nonstop through COVID, whereas other companies hadn't had anybody in there for 2 years, and now they're trying to figure out, well, what's the right culture mix? Not only from getting them in the office, but from recruiting. Everybody has different expectations now, and I think people have gotten to the point where we can learn both sides to ask in the recruiting process expectations of being in the office, et cetera. Then within our firm, we were mobile by design anyway, because we're out looking at clients, or working with clients, I should say. But it's really important for us that we get together at least once a month for a staff meeting, a happy hour, getting together with some other, people that we know, just to create that sort of team atmosphere within our group, to open up communication. So when somebody has an issue, they know they can talk to someone else in our firm about it, bring in an expert, get other ideas, et cetera.
I think this whole office culture, which was always important, but now the whole hybrid, everybody's in the office, nobody's in the office. I think if everybody's in the office, it's easier. If nobody's in the office, you probably have a system like you're talking about where, hey, we're going to do this. And, there were a lot of companies before COVID that were already virtual because that made the most sense. So they didn't have to make that adjustment, and they have that figured out. It's everybody else that's sort of caught in the middle. And I hear so many people scratching their heads trying to figure it out. And to me, it's not as simple as, if you have some people at home and some people in the office, it's not as simple as saying, okay, everybody come in for free lunch on Friday. It just, everybody's in a different place right now. Are you hearing a lot of the same things?
Absolutely. And I think what we hear a lot about too, and I'll take this from a CFO perspective, is, it's not only the how or the why are we getting people in, but when you start to look at it from a financial perspective, it's, we have this lease, we have this amount of space, what are we going to do 2 years from now? Do we even know enough today to know what this work environment is going to be like 2 years from now or a year from now? And then even if we have the space, are we going to redesign the space? Because maybe not everybody's in every day, maybe not everybody needs a desk, or maybe you want more of this community fun part of the office that we didn't have before, as a way of bringing people into the office. And then from, again, from a CFO perspective, you're starting to think, well, do I invest money into our office space to make it this cool environment to bring people in? Or has the world changed so much that we don't want to invest more into a physical space because that's not the direction things are going in? And, even though we've lived this for 2.5 years now, I mean, I think it might take another 2 years for those sorts of questions to sort of shake out of what life will be like 2 years from now. And what are we going to do today as we're making CFO type decisions to make sure we're hitting that mark 2 years from now?
Yeah, and this is everywhere. I mean, I just read an article the other day about downtown San Francisco, how it's a ghost town now. We were there. We were there for a week because we played the A's and the Giants all in 1 week with an off day in the middle. And it was like the street, we hadn't traveled for 2 years. The streets that I was walking down that were always packed were completely empty. These buildings with the big tech companies, everybody now working around the country, completely empty. And so there are just so many different elements that everyone is wrestling with. I don't know. Do you have any idea where this thing falls in 2 or 3 years? I don't.
No idea. I mean, if I were to take a bet, I mean, since everyone's had the taste of hybrid, I think, hybrid is sort of here to stay for at least a while. I mean, people just got so comfortable with it and realized the benefits of it. I mean, there are benefits with it as well. That I do think we will be in a hybrid environment, for a long time.
All right, couple final questions before we get to the baseball theme questions. You've been down this road now. What type of advice do you have for CEOs of small businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I always say, like, running a business is hard. There's a lot you need to balance, within any business. You got outside your four walls, you have things like competitors and the economy and all these and recruiting and regulations and all these sorts of things. inside your four walls, you have, people and culture and systems and process. I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts in any business, no matter what the size is. So I keep using the word alignment. I mean, to me, that is so important. And maybe an NFL an example here is, you got 11 players on the field and you're trying to run a play. They all have a job. And when everybody does their job, the play goes well. You also have 11 guys on the other side trying to stop you from doing that job. It's not backyard football. You need to have everybody sort of aligned. So within a business, I mean, that can be commission plans, or, is your recruiting in alignment with the type of people you're looking for? Are your accounting reports aligned with the type of analysis and strategy your company wants to go with? So, that communication and alignment, and we see it all the time when we walk into companies, they're not aligned. This hand doesn't know what this hand's even doing, and they're doing two completely different things. You try to get everybody rowing in the same direction. And I think that gets accomplished by people having a game plan. Again, the Chiefs walk on the field. I mean, it's not backyard football. A lot of times when you walk into a game, the first, 12 to 15 plays are already scripted out. And to me, I preach that a lot in the business world. I mean, it's like, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I'm going to give you completely different advice depending on where you tell me you want to go in 3 to 5 years. What does that look like in 5 years? How do we get there? What are some key milestones that we want to hit along the way? What are key drivers? I mean, working backwards, what are we doing today to help us get to where we want to get, in 5 years? And that could be an elaborate plan, or that could be a piece of paper, with just some goals on it. But those sorts of conversations get people talking, get people in alignment. Then you start to make sure that everything is sort of, lined up and we're all rowing in the same direction.
All right, last question before the baseball theme questions. That young Mike DeMaio that's out there walking through, probably not Kmart, maybe it's Target or Walmart at this point, or whatever it is, and they've got a mind like you did. What type of advice do you give someone like that for down the road?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's that 10,000 hours of experience. You got to jump in and do it, whether you're going to do it on your own or joining a company. You can be an entrepreneur within a company. It's not just being an entrepreneur. It doesn't mean just starting your own thing. So being in those companies, learning things, I'm a hands-on learner, and I think a lot of people are, whether they admit it or not. You could read a book versus doing it. Doing it, every time is gonna help you learn something. So just, being inside that environment of where you ultimately want to go and understanding how businesses work. I mean, that's exactly how I kind of grew up in these private companies as an accountant, and you work your way up the chain till you get to CFO, and then you're working alongside the CEO, and all those reps and experience just helps you execute, as you get older and if you're ready to do your own thing.
All right, let's get to the baseball theme questions. And Crown CFO named one of the 50 fastest growing companies in Kansas City in 2021. So everything is going well. What's the biggest home run that you have hit with Crown?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest home run was actually just starting Crown. It's just the right business at the right time. The industry is really getting hot right now, so we have a lot of wind at our back. You also question yourself when you're always sort of the number two guy in a business like this, like when I was a full-time CFO, whether actually you can do it or not, right? So being able to sort of step up to the plate and being able to do it has been a home run. I think a good analogy from a baseball perspective is I'm a Phillies fan. This past year they made it to the World Series. Well, they fired their manager halfway through the year. Yep. And they promoted a longtime number two guy in Rob Thompson. And, he stepped up to the plate, hit a home run, so to speak, and took the team to the World Series. And I think for me, you always had that sort of number two mentality, like, could I really do it? Could I really do it? Could I really do it? And then, when I started Crown, took the plunge and did it. And now that we've had the success we've had, I mean, it's just been incredibly, rewarding, and so happy I did it.
I think you're a Delaware guy, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Would be a Phillies fan, and Rob Thompson was, if I read the story correctly, was planning on retiring after this year, and then he took over the helm and won a National League pennant. So can't leave now.
Unbelievable.
That was exciting. Second question, as we continue on the baseball theme questions: swing and a miss. What's a swing and a miss you've taken, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I think, going back to when I first got out of school with an accounting degree, undergrad, think everybody's kind of pushing these accounting grads into the public life, working for a public firm. And it really just was not for me. It was a great firm and great people, and I did good work, but just, there's different flavors of accounting, and that path was not a path for me. It took me a year to figure it out. But that was a swing and a miss, just sort of stepping down the wrong path. And truthfully, I did it again after I got my MBA. You're getting recruited by these big companies, and I got my MBA and started to work for a bigger company. And again, realize it's not for me. I love this small company, private environment where I can walk down the hall and get something done. And so it's just important, I think, even going back to your previous question about a young Mike DeMaio, I mean, it's just, understanding your strengths and where your comfort is. And so you can excel in those situations, because if you're not in the right situation, you're just not going to be able to play your best game. And I think, those were some swing and misses I had in my career, thankfully able to get back in alignment with where I needed to go. But those were just not, great situations for me to be in.
And last, the culture question, the small ball, the little things that add up to the big results. What is small ball to you?
Yeah, for me, I preach a lot about putting the right butt in the right seat. I think everybody has superpowers. And if you're putting somebody in a situation, whether it's, I'll use industries in our world. I mean, if I have a construction person, I put them in a construction company for a client, they're going to hit a home run. If I take that same construction person who is brilliant and put them in a restaurant group, we can figure it out, but I've just completely taken away their superpowers and normalized them to just, a smart person who's in there. And so, what's big for us is right people in the right seat. You have to be patient, kind of waiting for your right pitch, right? I mean, sometimes you have to lay off certain opportunities or say no to certain things, till you wait till you have the right opportunity. I could put the right person in there, because for us, that's what hits the home runs.
Couldn't agree with you more. This was extremely insightful, especially in a workplace, a work world that is constantly changing and going new places that we'll see where it all shakes out. But I know that your services are needed regardless. The website, if you're interested, is crowncfo.com, continuing to grow. Mike, we'll continue this on YouTube with 4 bonus questions, but I really appreciate the time. It's good to see you again virtually with a little bit of a break in between, but thanks so much for being on Rounding the Bases.
Thanks, Joel. I really appreciate it.
Welcome back to Rounding the Bases Extra Innings. Joel Goldberg, Mike DeMaio. I hope you'll check out the audio version of the podcast, Rounding the Bases, wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple, or whatever the other ones are. Let's have a little bit of fun as we round the bases. Mike, first and foremost, I understand that you are a bit of a concert goer. You've even put on some concerts, some guitar playing abilities. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Oh man. It's really helped me in the business world. But when I was in high school, my sports hit its limits. I was not able to make the varsity teams. And so picked up a guitar, started playing in bands, even in high school, played a couple bars. We would play school functions. And then when I went to college, joined another band, and we would play lots of bars and school functions and parties and all that kind of stuff. It was an amazing experience. I mean, not only just so much fun playing in a band, but it really helped me from a business perspective. I mean, number one, being on stage in front of people, getting over that sort of stage fright. Number two, I mean, just trying to, hustle and find gigs. And once you get the gigs, then having to hang up flyers around the college and advertise to get there. I mean, it really was, my first foray into sort of running this little tiny business. But it was just a great experience for all of us. I mean, all the guys in the band were still, great friends today, talk about it all the time. It was a lot of fun. Still play guitar quite a bit. I think that'd be a good goal for me at some point, to get back into a band and play around Kansas City.
Pretty cool. And there's something about, I think I never have played in a band, very limited music, which is somewhat embarrassing since my mom was a music major, but it got passed on to my daughter. So we're all good there. But just all the different elements, the different pieces. And so sports that way too, right? I mean, people don't talk about the offensive line. Without them, you don't have them. People might not always notice the bass player unless you're paying attention to it. But if he or she's not there, you don't have your team. There are a lot of lessons there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just trying to get everybody on the same page and all that practice. So when you go out and need to execute, like I said, you've had those reps and you can pull it off. But yeah, when you screw it up, it can be funny too.
All right, second question. If I've been told this right, you once tried out for Jeopardy. What was that experience like?
I did. I tried out for Jeopardy. It was college Jeopardy. So I was back in college. It was a great experience. I got to meet Alex Trebek. He was there. I did not make it to the next level, but it was a pretty fun experience. As a matter of fact, I still remember one of the questions. I'm going to hit you up here. It's related to Barbie. I'm going to test your Barbie knowledge.
Oh gosh.
But what was Barbie's little sister's name?
I think the only other one I know is Ken. So
yeah, she had a little sister named Skipper. Yeah, I did not get that one right. I remember because I had no idea. But it was fun. Yeah, I got to meet Alex Trebek on the way out, and he was super nice. And then after that, I actually tried out, if you remember, a game show on ESPN called 2 Minute Drill. Yeah. So I tried out for that. Did not make the cut, but that was a great experience. I think Kenny Mayne was the host at the time. So it was a fun experience trying out for these game shows. I love trivia. I'll hit you up with one of those questions too that I remember.
Oh gosh.
Augusta National. When you go to play the Masters, what score is par for the course?
Oh, I'm just going to guess here. 71? No.
72.
Oh. I was thinking, because that's a tough course too. But I'm a casual golf fan at best. I would be terrible on any trivia show. I'm the guy that's supposed to ask the questions.
Well, have you ever done a hosting gig on a game show or anything?
I haven't done a game show, but I've done enough in front of people appearances where somehow I end up being the person that ends up asking the questions.
Well, I think trivia night with Joel Goldberg will go over huge around town here.
We could do something with that for sure. All right, third question as we round the bases. How did you end up? I mean, you're an East Coast guy. How did you end up settling in the Midwest?
Yeah, great question. So, I grew up in Delaware outside of Philly. After college, moved to Boston, lived there for 5 years. While I was there, I met my wife, Cindy, who grew up in Des Moines and went to school at KU. So we met while living in Boston. She would drag me to bars to watch KU basketball, which, I said, hey, I got no problem with this. This is great. She and I moved to DC after I got my MBA, and I was working for this larger company where we ran call centers for the government. And we had call centers in DC, Kentucky, Phoenix, and of all places, Lawrence, Kansas. We had a huge call center in Lawrence. I think we had over 1,000 call center agents there. So I was flying out a lot to Lawrence for work. I was flying out for KU basketball games. I was flying out to Kansas City for my wife's sorority sister's weddings. And after coming out so much, you're like, wow, this is a great place. Look at the houses everybody can live in around here versus what I could afford on the East Coast. Everybody I talked to who was both from the DC office and the Lawrence office just kept calling Kansas City a hidden gem. So we moved out here. I just transferred with that job, came out here 20 years ago, and it's never looked back. It's such an amazing place to live, great place to raise our kids. We love it.
Yeah, we do too. We've been here in Kansas City 15 years and in the Midwest since I left. I don't know if I ever told you that I grew up outside of Philadelphia.
I remember that. Yeah.
Of course, anybody in Philly, if you tell them you grew up in Philly, then if they find out that you grew up in Delaware or New Jersey, they disqualify you. So I'm like, we're all rooting for the same teams. Come on. But I've been gone from that area since 1985. Still sticks with you a little bit, but then again, I'm also in the profession where I don't watch games the way sports fans watch games. It's one of the very few negatives to it.
Right.
It's work. It's great work, by the way, but it's work. Okay, last question. We'll go to your work then and everything that you've been able to do in really a short amount of time with Crown. What are the long-term goals?
Yeah, I always say, even though this fractional CFO world is kind of new, I say, hey, we're no different than a lawyer. Lawyers are fractional lawyers and they've been that way for over 100 years. So I always joke, we're kind of where law firms were 100 years ago. Fast forward to today, where I see, big law firms around town, Polsinelli and Spencer Fane, and these are $100 million companies or $400 million companies, and I tell myself every day, there's no reason why we couldn't be one day, a firm just like those firms. It might take 100 years, so I might not be at the leading the firm at that point, but we are definitely, as an industry, on that trajectory. I see us in the next 5 years, hitting certain milestones like 10 million in revenue and eventually 20 million in revenue. But I see this as an industry as full steam ahead. I feel Crown is a great firm, that we're well positioned to take advantage of these sort of tailwinds we have in the industry right now.
Well, off to a great start and much more ahead. The website, again, is crowncfo.com. The full audio version of the podcast is on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. Mike, again, thanks for rounding the bases. So good to see you.
Joel, you're the best. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.